Hi there, everybody. Welcome to today's episode. Later on, we'll be talking to Sonia Thompson. A really great interview with her. But to start off with, we're just going to share with you what's been on mine and Tom's mind. And I think Tom's going to start us off with what's on his mind.
Well, yeah, I think a lot of people are thinking about how they're going to approach the start of the new academic year after the summer holidays. And you read a lot of blogs and people commenting about things like a recovery curriculum and the need to be trauma informed in your practice and all these sorts of things. And what's on my mind is that I worry a lot about this kind of language when my experience of these things is that schools are very often, for the majority of kids, the place where it's just the safest thing to be is totally normal. And if you've got kids who've experienced things, and I think the thing I'm most sort of close to would be, say, a bereavement, a kid who's lost a parent or experienced a really serious trauma. They don't really want you sort of going up to them, kind of asking how they feel the whole time. They don't want you to make them feel different and weird and strange at school, because that's kind of what's happening at home. What they want school to be is kind of neutral, kind of normal, every day, just getting you back on with it. And so for lots of reasons, I feel like there's a danger that teachers are going to be giving this message that we've got to be suddenly all watching out for these kids who've got to have had a terrible time and overdoing that to the point where they make things worse. So that's not meaning you're not sensitive to the possibility that some kids have had a strange time. But even then, I think what better thing to do is to say, hey, welcome back to my really normal classroom. We're going to teach you some stuff. And isn't that great? And be really enthusiastic about the job in hand, which is teaching some interesting things or reading some great books. And, keeping it as sort of back to basics, back to normal as you can possibly manage, rather than feeling that you're sort of about to sort of crush somebody's spirit or something. Because I think teachers are not at their best when they're feeling like they've got to sort of think about a million things. And what we're good at is teaching things, and that's what we should be focusing on. So I don't know, that's my hunch about this whole thing. What do you think?
It's a weird one, because I'm coming at it from kind of a slightly different angle, in that my own children are very young. So they haven't necessarily got masses of experience of that kind of, as you said, the normal school experience. Everything's going to be kind of new for them. I know my three will be fine. Lockdown's been more stressful for me trying to homeschool them than it has for them. But I do think there needs to be a degree of vigilance amongst the teaching profession when we go back. Yes, we're trying to keep sort of business as usual and keep things as normal and as happy and as on an even keel as we can with the children. But there needs to be that vigilance and not making those assumptions that, they must have been all right because their family does this, or I know about this, or I know about that. And actually just keeping in mind the fact that everybody's lockdown experience will have been completely different from their normal day-to-day setup, different from their normal day-to-day everyday lives. And actually what we shouldn't be doing is making assumptions, either like you said, that everybody's had this awful trauma, and also that nobody's had any kind of trauma as well. It's having that professional vigilance and that overview, and using your skills and your knowledge to actually think, that's not quite what I would have expected from that pupil or that group of pupils. So that's when I need to start implementing all the kind of extra awareness or extra programs or digging a little bit deeper. It's about recognising professionally that this has happened. We can't pretend that the pandemic hasn't happened. We can't be like, nothing to see here, move along, everything's fine. But we do need to present as much of a normal as we can, but with this heightened vigilance about not making assumptions about what children may or may not experience.
I think you're probably right there. I think that one of the things I think is interesting is that the sort of slightly paradoxical thing, which is that some of the kids who find it harder to get back to school are the ones who've had a really good time at home, because actually they've enjoyed the way it's been structured. So I know some kids of children of my friends if actually they've quite enjoyed it. They've been able to manage their own time. They've done things in their own pace. And actually, even these few kind of taster days back this side of the summer, they found it a bit like, oh God, suddenly we're working with a teacher kind of marshalling us through, and it's kind of really slowed it all down a bit. And so there is that really interesting phenomenon that if your kind of remote learning has been really good, then to match that flexibility and that dynamism in your teaching, there's going to be a change. So those kids might be the ones who are thinking, "Oh God, school, you're holding me back again," and that's an interesting challenge, isn't it?
Yeah, and I think the whole stamina issue, especially for younger children, is going to be a big issue because my 6-year-old, she gets up in the morning really early, she gets the iPad, she logs herself onto Oak National, she does 3 or 4 lessons, and she comes to me at sort of 9:30 and goes, "I'm done for the day, I'm off to play." Well, actually, that's going to be really tricky for her to go back to school, be in from, well, we've got a staggered start now, but from sort of 9 till 3, and actually keep on going for that length of time. So I think the stamina issue for some children is going to be a real issue, and the fact that they haven't got control about when they do stuff anymore. They've been able to do their own learning as and when they need to do it or when it fits in with the family. And actually, that kind of really highly structured environment, when they go back, is going to be a little bit of a shock to the system.
They'll be exhausted, won't they? The length of the day, everything will be hard.
Yeah.
But I do think this is one of the things, without trying to be too controversial about it, I actually feel there is a bit of a tendency amongst some people, of course everyone's not like this, where to kind of impose their own emotions onto a situation. In our house, we call people ambulance chasers who like a bit of drama, like a bit of drama, and they say everything's a nightmare the whole time. Oh, it's a nightmare. And that if you go into a situation with a group of kids with your own baggage about, oh, it's a nightmare, we're never going to catch up, and we're so far behind, and you poor things, you've been struggling at home all the time, that's not the right kind of cue. So you kind of have to just sort of leave that at the door and say, that might be how I'm feeling, but when I come in, it's just that big bright face and welcoming back, and hey, look, if you found it hard, fine, we're just going to sort everything out, it's all going to be cool, and we'll get there. That kind of can-do spirit, that it's all possible. And I think that's a culture, isn't it? You need to create that expectation amongst a group that that's how we're going to be.
And we forget as well that we are also not imposing our own structures on, but our own kind of, and our own emotions, but our own experiences. My 4-year-old had his induction day for primary school via Zoom the other day, which to me was like, oh my God, he's not been up to the school, he's not done this, he's not done that. Oh, isn't it terrible? Because obviously my elder 2 children have been involved in that. And then as a school leader, you're involved in the provision of that. He absolutely loved it. He thought it was the most hilarious thing ever. He thought it was brilliant talking to his teachers on the computer, showing them all his toys. And it, if, like you say, he could have gone into that going, oh, it's so dreadful, he's deficit, he's not had that experience. He's had the only experience he knows, and he thinks it's absolutely blooming marvellous. He's had a great time. So it's not only imposing our own emotions, but the kind of the historical structure of what we've done isn't necessarily always the best way or the one that the children enjoy. So we've kind of got to go with it a little bit and just use our professional knowledge and skills and expertise to kind of navigate it and think, as long as they're all right and they're safe, and we're providing a curriculum which meets their learning needs now, I think we're probably going to be all right. Yeah,
I think so. And I think in a school where you sort of feel like when you're teaching them before, like they're halfway through an exam course, some teachers are worried they'll have forgotten everything or they didn't learn much. But I do think, again, that's about just saying, okay, where do we get to? Here's some of the stuff I'm hoping you'd have learned, but let's see how you did. But not drag over that too long. Just say, okay, this is where I think we are now. Okay, let's just reframe it and let's head for there. And set out a kind of future journey rather than agonizing too much about the past one.
And being really clear about what it is you want them to learn as well, as in stripping back the curriculum and thinking, right, this is the really important stuff that you really, really need to know for this subject or for this aspect of what we're teaching. Let's get rid of all the extraneous bits and bobs, concentrate on the important bits that are the bits that if you don't get this right, you won't be able to do anything else either. So let's get the bare bones sorted, find the gaps in what you don't know there, plug those, and then move on. Just like you do with every new class you inherit every single year. You do exactly the same thing. You find out where the gaps are, you plug those gaps so they've got a firm foundation, and then you move on. It's exactly what we've got to do, the same thing that we've always done.
I totally agree, yeah. In fact, I heard of someone telling me about how they know the school where they've identified a group of disadvantaged kids and they've got them in for 2 weeks with a specialist company doing a kind of 2 weeks well-being program instead of the normal lessons while everyone else is doing the normal lessons. I'm just thinking, no, like, why would you do that to those poor kids, that you're going to come and make them endure a 2 weeks well-being course when you could just be making them feel like everybody else? Anyway, look, I think we've probably done that one. So look, that's what's been on our minds. Thank you everyone for joining us today, and we look forward to talking to Sonia Thompson. Hello everybody, welcome to this episode where we're going to be talking to the fantastic Sonia Thompson, who is a primary head teacher. She's a head teacher of St Matthew's C of E Primary School in Netchells in Birmingham, and she's someone I met at an event where we were both speaking, and having never met her before, she's someone who just immediately blew me away. I was just totally captivated by what she was saying about curriculum and about her lovely school, and I was just so keen to get her onto our programme as soon as possible. So welcome, Sonia.
Thank you, Tom.
So are you asking the first question, Tom?
Yeah.
Okay. I shall sit back for a minute.
Okay, well, that's what I say.
Emma, sorry.
I mean, there's so much that we could talk to you about, because you've got so many kind of lines of kind of, so many passions. Reading is one of them, and so on. And one of the things I'm particularly interested in is this idea of reading for empathy, which is a kind of like the hashtag you always put out.
Yeah.
And I wonder if that would be a good place to start, if you tell people kind of what that is and why empathy and reading go together for you.
Well, I got involved with Reading for Empathy, and it is a movement, I would say, that really looks at the way that books and reading can support children to have those conversations about their emotions and their feelings. I think as primary teachers, we use storytelling a lot. We use books a lot to teach in different subject areas, but one of the things that we certainly find useful is just tuning into those books that really support some of those difficult conversations around sadness, around happiness, around death, around resilience, around having to say sorry, having to think about other people's emotions and feelings, and having to understand that it's not always just about you. And there's so many good quality books around that can support teachers with that. So I got involved with an organisation called Empathy Lab, and their remit is to gather together collections across primary and secondary that support teachers to have those conversations. So there is a particular day, and on that day they draft in authors and writers and lots of different people, lecturers, university professors, to talk about the research behind the whole idea of empathy, what empathy actually does to the brain, how it supports children's development and growth, how it supports their learning. So it really is a whole set of principles around supporting children in lots of different ways. Yeah.
So how do you get it working in a school? So I can imagine there's the text that you've got to choose the books, obviously. Yeah. But what's it like sort of getting a group of teachers to do it? Because you personally can't do all the reading. How do you get it to happen in your school then, this type of thing?
Certainly I'm lucky in my school, because I'm one of the people that chooses the books for Empathy Day. So I get a full set and draft in the teachers to read and to choose the ones that they're going to use on the day. The good thing about Empathy Lab is that they are very insightful. They produce lesson plans linked to each of the books that they recommend. So teachers don't even need to think about the ideas for themselves. The website's packed full of ideas against each of the books. They've got a bookshop that supplies packs of books. So, there's a lot of work that's being done to support teachers to have the discussions about empathy and keep those discussions going. It's an ongoing thing. Certainly in a time like this, gosh, we need to support our children to understand the feelings and emotions of others. And the good thing is that empathy can be taught. People think that, you're either empathetic or you're not. Well, actually, it is something that the research says can be taught. And for me, it's a crucial thing that we need to be teaching our children to understand why things happen, what happens, and what are the consequences emotionally for things happening to people.
Do you find they do? I mean, do you find kids start to show signs of being more empathetic then?
Definitely. I think children are great at picking up on these ideas. I think sometimes more so than adults. They very quickly understand how friendship groups are gained and lost, and what emotions come into play by not being very nice to different people within their friendship groups. So they begin to understand quite quickly about feelings and emotions. But children are great. And often they need some guidance around those conversations. And this is what the Empathy Lab books provide through the use of the characters, the consequences of not treating someone fairly. The other thing about Empathy Lab is it's not just about reading the books, connecting with the books. It's also about action, and actually children being quite active, adults being quite active in trying to make a difference, looking for ways of making a difference within their community, within their schools. It's not just about sympathizing. I think that's the big message for me. We can always sympathize with people. Empathy is about actually doing something, feeling something, and acting on those emotions. So, yeah.
Oh, that's fantastic. So, Emma, is it something you've kind of engaged with or, done something similar to?
I've seen sort of focuses on books for a day or whatever. No, not necessarily with the empathy handle. There's a lady called Ginny Bootman who does a lot of speaking about empathy. She talks about following the empathy road, and she's doing quite a lot of work in that. But I'm just so delighted, Sonia, that we've got a primary practitioner on here. I'm so delighted that you're in the new Research Ed book about curriculum representing primary practice. And I was looking through the bullet points that you've got in your book about all the things that in your curriculum. And I was just thinking, I'd really love to go to Sonia's school and wander around. But I kind of, to give people a flavour who haven't necessarily read the book and had a look at your bullet points, if you were to take them for a wander around your school, what might they see that really kind of underpins the work that you do?
I think what they'd find, certainly if I talk a little bit about our context, we're in the heart of Birmingham, the inner city heart of Birmingham. We're the place that when people say Nechells in Birmingham, I always say Nechells, it's like the Seychelles without the beach and the sun.
I thought that's how you had to say it.
But we haven't got the beach and we haven't got the sun. We're one of the most deprived areas in Birmingham, in the 5th quartile. But it is a lovely, lovely community. And I can't move the school. I wouldn't want to move the school. I love our community. I love our children. And I think the context that we're in, I think it drives myself and my senior leaders' passion and the teachers' passion to do as much as we can within our community, not just to just be a school by itself, but to support the community, to think the children to take pride in their community as well. So in the school, one of the things that I certainly am passionate about, I've already talked about it a little bit, is reading, not just for pleasure. I'm passionate about reading for pleasure, but also about the teaching of reading, the teaching of phonics, doing it really well, the teaching of comprehension, and the teaching of fluency. So we work very strongly hand in hand with pleasure. I call it pleasure and progress. So
I've written that down. I've actually written pleasure and progress. Ask Sonia about progress.
So making sure that we're alongside that reading for pleasure, which the research is very clear says has an impact on the progress. Theresa Kremin calls it the skill influencing the will. So if children are willing to read, want to read, then the skills of reading, they're happy to have a go. They're happy to have a really good go with challenging texts. And one of the things that we're really passionate about at St Matthew's is using challenging texts, not dumbing things down, in fact, raising the challenge, raising the bar for our children, all from reception all the way up to year 6, and getting them reading passionately and wanting to read in order to move themselves forward across all the subject areas. Yeah, so that's one of the key things. I think the other thing for me is this idea of funds of knowledge. And that is really one of our key principles. This idea that children who come from disadvantaged areas are not deficit. And that's a personal thing for me, because I was that child from that family, a family of 10, that went to school, and people thought that we were deficit, and they felt that they had to, that we didn't bring anything to the table, and that we needed to be filled up. But actually we came with a lot. And Louis Malle, who writes about funds of knowledge, says children come in no matter what they bring their culture, they bring their heritage, they bring their background, and it's in their backpacks. And they come to school with that backpack. And actually, we as teachers need to take some time to unpack that backpack. And if somebody had unpacked mine, which no teacher ever did, no disrespect to teachers, I want myself, but no one ever unpacked mine. And in there, they would have found a reader, somebody who loved reading. In fact, they would have found a child of parents with 10 children who used to send 6 of them at once to the library every week. And we loved books, and they wanted us to read. They would have found someone who was very, very much into oracy, because my parents were Pentecostal Christians, fiery preachers, fiery, listeners of the word. And we knew our Bible. They would have found somebody who knew their Bible inside out. Any story you could have asked me, 7, 8, 6, 7, 8, you could have asked me, and I could have retold that story. But no one ever asked me. They saw me as that child from that family of 10 children from that area who didn't bring anything to the table. So I am really passionate about ensuring that there is space in my curriculum for our teachers to unpack our children's backpack. What is it they're bringing with them?
How do you do? I mean, I love that metaphor. It's so fantastic. You know, the kids they're not like blank slates, and they're not like sort of knowing less than the, say, more advantaged children or whatever. They've got these other. So what's the way of bringing that out? I mean, how does that happen? I can't quite picture it.
Yeah.
You know, how do you?
We call it sharing literacy lives. And it's just a time space that we make within our curriculum where we tell the children about ourselves, and we make time for the children to tell the teachers about themselves, where they're from, what their passions are, what they like to do. We have some themes across our school, and each of those themes lasts for half a term. So we have 6 themes across the year. So we start off the year with a theme called Our Lives, Our Families. So of course that gives us the space then to find out about the children's lives, to find out about their families. Then we move on to our community, where we find out about Nechells, where they live in Nechells, what they love about Nechells, what they don't like about Nechells. We move on to our passions. So what are they passionate about? What are they bringing in terms of their passions? And we find out all sorts about things that they're passionate about, things that we just would never know. We recently found out that one of our children is building a games platform, and he's testing it out, and is about to launch it, and he's 9 years old, about to launch it and get paid for it. Who knew? And if we didn't make space to have those conversations,
that's so cool.
Don't know these things. So it is just about making that time. We end the year with something called Our Future, where we talk about transition, moving on, moving forward. We talk about how we've transitioned from children into the positions where we are now, and it's then that we get a chance to talk about ambition, our careers, jobs. As I said, not that we're preparing them for anything like that, but we're preparing them for the idea that actually you could do some things, you could move out of Nechells, you might want to stay if you want to, but there's a world out there. And we've been and seen things in that world. So yeah, it's just that, and we, as I said, we make space to do that. I'm
fascinated about that, because the conversations that I have with school leaders are, the curriculum's packed. We can't do this because there's too much in the curriculum, or we can't do fewer things in greater depth because there's too many things in the curriculum. So how have you made the space in the curriculum? What are the decisions? I
think we made the decision to unpack it a long time ago because we were passionate about reading for pleasure, and we just had to fit that in. So we're on a kind of cycle in Key Stage 2 where we do a week of whole class reading, where we do, I was very fortunate to go on Doug Lamoth's training in 2016. So we've been doing close reading from Reading Reconsidered for a long time, really in-depth stuff around our reading, and built on that over the years. But we also have 2 or 3 days where we drop everything and we just read. We don't write, we don't record, and we just allow the children to soak themselves in quality texts and just enjoy. We're also on a cycle for our subject areas. We're very much about distinct subject areas, distinct knowledge, and building that. So we saturate, again, ourselves in history for a week, and we don't do anything else. So it's just pure history for the week, from the time they get into school every day until the time they leave. And we're able to really build a strength around each subject area across the year. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, we've just changed. We've just changed it. I don't know if it's right, but we've just changed it. We do what we want at St Matthews. We do what works for us.
One of the things I really remember from the presentation I saw you give was you're talking about introducing something like a reading hour or something in the day, and how you can't just sort of say everybody you've got to read for an hour. You said I'm there marching the corridors. Yeah. You have to really insist and change people's habits so they're properly doing it. And I thought that was really interesting that you've got this sort of steel there, as well as the kind of the values.
And I think one of the things that I've been involved in is a website called the Research Rich Pedagogies. And it came out of some research that I did with Open University Theresa Cremin 10 years ago, where we looked at reading for pleasure pedagogy and just nailed down what are the key things that pedagogy involves. And of course, reading aloud and reading aloud to children on a daily basis is one of the things that makes a difference. Of course, teachers, schools say we've implemented that. We do reading at the end of the day, but teachers often put work, getting children to finish work, above that time, because they think that reading aloud and taking time out to do that is wasting time. And as I said, the research is very clear. Reading aloud to children is one of the most powerful tools for getting children to move their reading for pleasure forward, their background knowledge forward, their understanding forward, their vocabulary forward. So it's something that, for me, is a no-brainer. We have to invest in it. And as I said, we set aside time at the end of the day, in the beginning. At about 2:50, I expected everybody to stop. And as I said, teachers were carrying on working on a march. They get that, put that away, get that book out. So teachers kind of got into a habit of knowing that actually she means business with this reading for pleasure. And
isn't it the best part of the day?
Absolutely.
Absolutely. It is the treat for the children and the teacher, because it's that point at which you open the magic that's in the book and you think, you know what, this is one of the reasons I came into teaching, to share this love with the children and to see them looking at you.
Yeah.
Apart from when you're in Key Stage 1 and they just stroke your leg.
Yes. Oh, that's
what's great is that you've got this sort of the other. We're going to run it. I could talk to you for ages, but one of the things I wanted to also ask you about was just to this idea that your school in Nechells is like the classics hub or something, like you teach Latin and stuff.
Yeah, we do. Yeah.
And often people associate Latin with being something which isn't for schools like yours. But so how did that come about? How did you get to be the classics hub?
Yeah, well, we thought, why not? Why can't we teach Latin in Nechells? So we, as I said, we contacted the West Midlands Classics Hub, and they were fantastic. And if anybody does want to teach Latin, there is so much support out there. What was great is that because we are a teaching school, because we are a research school, lots of people come through our school throughout the year. So the West Midlands Classics Hub thought, actually, you're great contacts, because we've got lots of schools coming to us now because of you. So it's just a great opportunity, as I said. And I think the thing with Latin is that it is such a springboard for vocabulary work, for other languages, and schools, if you do take it on board, don't worry about not teaching French, Spanish, German. Latin can, if they do those things in secondary, Latin can be the springboard for those other subjects. So it is that leveler. I mean, first of all, it came about because actually our Spanish teacher went off on maternity leave twice. So we did think to ourselves, actually, we need to skill everybody up. And the good thing about Latin training, and the Latin training provided by the West Midlands Classics Hub, is that they train everybody. So we all sat together, including me, and we were all trained together. Don't ask me anything.
Sonia, on my bracelet here is a little bit of Latin, which is quite fortuitous today, because it says, per angusta ad augusta, which means through difficulty to honour. And I think it's been an absolute honour speaking to you today. It's been an absolute pleasure to find out about your children and your school. So thank you very much. It is an honour.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, wow. We've just had a fantastic conversation with Sonia Thompson, who's the head teacher at St Matthew's CFE Primary School in Birmingham, Nechells. And I love her. She's just amazing. I was blown away. I wanted to get her on this as soon as we started doing it, to be honest, because she's one of the people that I think of as being the kind of the archetypal primary head teacher who's just doing absolutely everything she can to kind of get her school to be fantastic in quite difficult circumstances. And she's so ambitious, but also kind of very methodical. So she's a brilliant networker. She gets in touch with the West Midlands Classics Hub. She's got people coming in doing writing workshops. She's got this empathy for writing, and it's sort of this combination of the sort of steel and the vision. And then the backpacks. I mean, I just love the backpacks. Just fantastic. Kids come to school with stuff, and that's who they are. And for me, that's so inspiring that we don't just say, "Oh, here's some stuff to go and learn." It's like we find out who they are and her personal experience of that. I just think that's a really brilliant idea that people need to pick up on. And she's got this way of working it into the curriculum. So it's not just something you have a token amount of. It's in the curriculum. They have an opportunity to tell everyone about themselves. So I thought she was lovely and wonderful.
Yeah.
And very inspiring. A lot of people will learn a lot from her.
I absolutely love the way that those children are truly at the heart of everything that she does. From the unpacking of the backpack to the linking to the families, the communities, the lives, opportunities within Nechells, with outside Nechells. And I really want to talk to her some more about how she structures the curriculum, how she finds the wriggle room and the time to do all these wonderful things. Because I think a lot of other primary leaders would really appreciate the opportunity of finding out the mechanics and the nuts and bolts of actually where you find that space, because the primary curriculum can be so overcrowded. And I really, really want to talk to her more about reading for pleasure and for progress as well. I really want to unpick that. So I'm going to go back to the Research Ed curriculum book and read her chapter again, and then cross everything. We can have her on again. So
yeah, definitely. She's top person.
Yeah, but we only got 20 minutes with her, so we'll have to wait until next time. So thank you for listening. Hopefully we'll see Sonia again soon. Got some more great guests coming up. Thank you very much.